couple of armchair GMs who have yet to be wrong with any of their Timberwolves takes. Right. It's Flagrant Howls with Phil Mackey and Kyle Theige.
Welcome in to Flagrant Howls, everyone's favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. I'm Phil. That's Kyle over there. And we have a special guest on today's podcast. Let's waste no time here, my friend. This man guided the Timberwolves to back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in almost 20 years. He lists Wedding Crashers and The Natural as two of his all-time favorite movies. And he loves a good blueberry pie. Chris Finch making his first appearance on Flagrant Howls. Finchy, what's going on? Well, that's Kyle's genius podcast naming abilities right there.
Yeah. Well, hey, I just wanted to... Finch, we appreciate you having you on. I know it's draft day, so it's a little chaotic. We wanted to get the tough question out of the way now and then just kind of chop it up about hoops. But I don't know if you saw this earlier this week. Former colleague of yours, Michael Malone, got a tattoo of the Nuggets logo holding the Larry O'Brien after they won the title. So if, or I guess when, you lead this team to a title down the road, what are the chances that you would get some ink with a Timberwolves logo?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would be forever linked with the Timberwolves, which would be an amazing thing. But I don't think I would do it in any permanent fashion on my body.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I have enough ugly marks on my body. No one needs to see another one. So
why don't you rank the top 5 ugly marks on your body? Chris Finch, here we go. Let's get to know him really well. How do you? So we're just for the audience. We are sitting here a few hours before the draft tonight. So if something chaotic happens, we'll probably keep this more like evergreen and topical. But as we've been sitting here the last couple of Chris Paul gets traded a couple days ago. Bradley Beal gets dealt. You had the Porzingis, Tyus Jones 3-team trade. How do you feel about rumor season yourself? Like, are you like Kyle and I? Do you like refresh Twitter or social? Like, do you love or loathe NBA rumor season as a head coach?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you should know I don't have any social media. I'm not on social media. I don't have the time for it, to be honest with you. So
no burner account that you're going to get not Kevin Durant style, or you've got a burner account.
Nope. And if I did, obviously I wouldn't be telling you about it, but I don't have the time for it. Who has the time to follow all that stuff? I mean, I say that I get a lot of the rumors or a lot of the transactions, a little bit of a lag time. Of course, I stay up to date as best possible through everybody around me, but I'm not checking in all the time on it. As we all work in a world where oftentimes, what's the most intriguing thing about the NBA is literally the speculation about what can go on. I think that's what makes it unique. There's this fantasy GM element to it. And it's kind of, natural, just like how because a basketball team is easy to look at it. It's easy to see, and it's easy to compute to say, like, what would happen if this guy came and joined our team? Or what happened if we made this trade? So I think all that feeds into the kind of the allure of the league. And it's good for the league. It drives interest in the league, but 90% of these things never happen. So to get bogged down into it all, can be draining if you allow it to be.
Chris, when you came in a couple of years ago and replaced Ryan, prior to that, it seemed like it was pretty normal for once the season was done for the guys to kind of go their separate ways. And they even, still had Mayo Clinic Square at that time. But since you came in, it seems like there's been just kind of more of an organic emphasis on these guys sticking around, working out in the summers, being at the practice facility all summer. How big is that for what you're trying to build in kind of this program?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important for the culture you're trying to build, for the relationships you're trying to build between the team, the player and the team and the market and the city and the particularly in the off season where it's such an amazing place to live here. But it's down to the guys. They're serious about their work. They have great relationships with our coaches. They are like working with each other in numbers. It's one thing I've noticed about a lot of basketball players these days. They tend to like to work out in small groups. It's a little bit of a social aspect to it. And when you have guys flying back in town to work out with each other, it says that there's something going on here. I always believe that the building should kind of be the heartbeat of what it is we're doing, like should drive everything in the organization, just have this energy in the building all the time. People should be excited to go to work, whether it's on the business side or the basketball side. It's like, that's why you get involved and want to work for a team. You want to be part of something. You want to feel the energy around that team. And it's our job. And one of our big sayings is here, like, you're either giving energy or taking energy. Like, there's nothing in between. And right now we have our players and our coaches giving a lot of energy into this building, and it's starting to, create some momentum around, team chemistry, culture, young players growing up together, forming those bonds that help you have that special core, which every team really wants,
I love, I'm a sucker for culture talk. A couple months ago for this podcast, I wound up Googling what is heat culture defined. And I found a GQ article with Udonis Haslem, who's, the OG of heat culture going back 20 years. And these are his own words. He defines heat culture as discipline, accountability, work ethic, and enjoying somebody else's success. So, I'm putting you on the spot here, but what words or phrases, and you mentioned some of them, do you want Wolves culture to be going forward?
Not to pirate off, it's literally the same things we preach, all of that. The one thing I think that's really special in that is the enjoying others' success. And when your best players are able to do that, that really spreads the love, right? Like Anthony Edwards is a classic example of this. Like, I've never really been around a young player who gets his, much attention, profile, publicity, et cetera, who really, really, really loves his teammates' success. A lot of younger players, it's like everything, it's either always about them or they're super competitive and trying to prove themselves in a market with a lot of other young players, earn a max deal, get to the all-star team, all these things that they're always trying to accomplish. And that's part of just being a great competitor. But when you have someone like him who really spins the love off to his teammates, I think that's a special quality, And then the other part, the coaching piece and the accountability piece and I'm only going to be as good as my ability or willingness to coach our best players. That's just what it comes down to. Like, if I am not on them or holding them accountable, then things can get loose in a hurry. And we have guys that allow me to do that. And we have guys that are highly coachable and mature in that way. And therefore, like, the rest of the roster kind of falls in line. If you can coach Karl Anthony Towns and you can coach Rudy Gobert and you coach Anthony Edwards really hard and necessarily at the right times to get on them and hold them accountable in front of others, then they start holding each other accountable and themselves accountable. And then that's how it goes.
Your coaching passport has a lot of stamps, not just like in the US, but all over the world. How much, like in 2023, I've always just kind of wanted to ask you, like, how much is a head coach's job now just to manage personalities versus like X's and O's?
Yeah. Well, a large part for sure, is just managing personality, managing the rosters, setting the agenda, creating the environment, managing a staff. Like, these are all, you're kind of like a CEO of the team because of all the things that you are actually overseeing or managing. We have very large staffs these days in the NBA. And I think they're necessary just because the players require such one-on-one attention. Either, just that's kind of how people learn best these days. We get them so young. We need to get them up to speed in a lot of different ways. And it's just that time and personal attention that is needed. But I'm fortunate to have a lot of really good X and O people on our staff as well. Of course, it's all about X's and O's when we meet, game planning, executing, carrying out game plan adjustments, etc. But, a large part of that is broken up into specialization, just like a football staff will be, offensively, defensively. Kevin Hansen handles our pick and rolls. ET handles our overall defensive philosophy. Pablo Prigioni handles a lot of our transition and flow game. Micah Nori handles our special situations and a lot of our ATO concepts. So those that way people have ownership over something. They can get into the weeds with it, and now the ideas just come at me nonstop from those guys out of those areas.
Hey, what does it say that Anthony Edwards in the biggest playoff games rises up and elevates his game? Is it too small of a sample size to say that he's a guy that does that, or can we glean from the small sample size?
I don't think it's too small of a sample size. Obviously, we want to see it, continue, and that relies on us getting there and him being good once we do get there. But what I think we can say is real is a lot of young players struggle early on in the career in the playoffs, and he hasn't in that way. He's always had a sense for the moment. He has great confidence that's fueling him. It's not a confidence that comes from an insecurity. A lot of guys, will feel super confident or act super confident, but ultimately they're insecure. And as you get to that level, the stakes get high, and some guys just naturally need time to adjust to it. But he's not been, ever really. It's not really been a factor with him. And the incredible thing is, really hasn't done a ton of winning in his life before he came to the NBA. Played a lot of basketball, and he was a spectacular player in that, but he wasn't in a lot of winning environments. They didn't necessarily win at Georgia. They didn't necessarily win in his high school. So, so him, finding these moments and excelling in these moments is it's deep within him. It's not something that was created from his basketball journey.
Speaking of winning, you've been here just a handful of years, but you've already become the second most winning coach in Timberwolves history. What is something that you've been proud of in terms of your growth as a coach? I mean, all these players have things they work on and get better at. What's the thing you've been most proud of in the couple of years you've been here from a coaching standpoint?
Yeah, I guess that we've been able to. The thing I'm most proud of, I think, is that we've been able to kind of turn the corner here, and it feels like we have a team that people like to root for, they like to watch for the most part. It's a team that we feel like we're laying a foundation with good young players, teaching them the right habits, playing in a lot of meaningful games. I think honestly, when you get these job opportunities in the league, a lot of them come about because they're not the best opportunities. Teams in a tough time or what have you. And so you got to kind of, put it all together sometimes out of nothing. And, but that wasn't the case when I got here. There's a lot of good young talent, and just being able to kind of pull that talent together and give them purpose and confidence and get out of their way and let them excel and grow. Those are the things I take pride in the most, but we got a long way to go for sure. But we feel like we have some momentum.
Hey, do you just kind of going down a side street here? Do you have hobbies? I would imagine as an NBA coach, it's hard to do anything other than obsess about, especially when, hey, a year ago we're going to try this new 2 big men experiment and go get it, right? What do you do outside of just obsessing about basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty balanced life. I mean, obviously, I'm living the dream. I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do. So I don't think of it as a job. I don't think of it as something that occupies too much of my time, But in the summer times, I like to fish, mostly saltwater, not much up here in the freshwater. Bought a boat, have it out on Lake Minnetonka. Get out there a number of times, at least once a week, maybe twice a week in the afternoons. That's more of a swimming and, drinking platform than it is anything else. But, yeah, it's nice to relax.
Do random people like Wolves fans ever just run into you as you're, I don't know, you got a koozie in your hand on a pontoon?
Yeah, sometimes.
Finche!
Sometimes I get recognized, and I get recognized more and more around town, which is it's also nice because it means people care, they're paying attention. So
one of the things I'm always blown away by, covering a game or being in the arena, is just how fast everything's going. So you were talking about, you're kind of like a CEO of the team, right? With all these different things you have to manage, and you have all your assistants. But I've always wanted to ask you specifically, because you have big personalities on the team. How hard is it in the first quarter when Ant's spinning his finger, Rudy's spinning his finger, and he wants you to review something, for you to be listen, man, kind of got to weigh the options of, is this worth it right now?
Yeah. You get a lot of pressure. You get a lot of, sometimes you get a few comments sent your way, but you got to, someone once told me that if you want to be a coach at this level, you got to do it with one eye open and one ear closed, so, which is probably pretty good advice. No, I mean, we have a philosophy, and we explain that philosophy to the team. Like, hey, this is what, when it comes to challenges or when it comes to timeouts or when it comes to these types of things, we always communicate the why. It's the most important thing in coaching the modern era is the athlete needs to know why. Like they're gone are the days when, coaches just said things and players just did them. You have to have buy-in. You have to have understanding. I'm no longer the sole interpreter of what happens on the floor. Very smart people, media is growing. People like yourself are watching, you're commenting, you're criticizing, you're suggesting, you're whatever. So is the front office, so is ownership, so is everybody down the line. It's just way more clued in and educated what's going on out there. So we clearly explain the why to everything that we do. We'll take input. We don't always, it's not a democracy. I wasn't elected coach, so it still like comes down to my decision here. And but I try to get these guys to buy in and at least understand what the purpose is. So in situations where we have potential conflict, or things are moving fast where I don't have a chance to always explain myself.
Conflict? What do you mean? By the way, what like when you saw that happen? By the way, the punch. Like, what were you like? Where were you when that happened? Like, did you look up?
I was in the huddle and it happened right over top of my head. So it was good. First thing I thought was, thank God I didn't stand up a second too early. So
like a wrestling match where the ref gets accidentally knocked out or something.
Right.
Is everyone? Rudy was back. Is everyone? How would you characterize the chemistry and everything? Is everything cool?
The chemistry on our team is outstanding, and it always has been. I've said this multiple times, and many times I'll continue to say it about that incident. It's unfortunate. It's something not something we're proud of. It's something that happens when you have highly competitive people trying to win the most important game of the season, and two of our most mature leaders who their job was to hold people accountable, and they were trying to hold each other accountable. Having said all that, that was not built on any kind of bad blood. None whatsoever. There was no lead up to it. It's not like these guys didn't get along. If you go back several weeks prior, we have footage of Kyle planting a kiss on Rudy after Rudy misses a layup where he, was fouled and Kyle was, had said something to him about finishing and didn't realize Rudy was fouled and then apologized to it. So, I mean, this big boy sports, right? This is what happens when competitive men go at it. You see it in practice, more often than, it ever gets known. But it's not a residual effect of some kind of bad chemistry. We have a really good locker room here.
I know we want to respect your time, and especially on the draft, but as it seems like, this core is back and they're all in the building and they're kind of looking forward to next season. Like, what are you most looking forward to for this upcoming season with these guys, having everyone healthy and having everyone back?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Obviously, just getting everybody healthy, being able to kind of plan what we think we want to do in the summertime and then kind of bring it to fruition through a great training camp and, learn from what we did, what we were able to take away from last season with the two big lineup and all the things that we feel like we're going to have a much better starting point. That's what excites me most. Last season, in many ways, the further I get away from it, the more at peace I am with it. I thought, given everything that happened and everything we had to fight through, finishing with a winning record, making the playoffs for the second year in a row was really important. And it continued to, we can say to ourselves, hey, we didn't maybe maximize expectations, but through injury, through a lot of other things that happened, through a big trade, all that, we were still able to be super competitive, play the champions as best as anyone else has. And in doing all that, keep us really hungry for the future.
Yeah, we're kind of the same way. At the beginning of the playoffs, I called the Nuggets a fake number 1 seed, and Kyle called them the Purdue of the NBA. And after 2 months of playoffs, we were both like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. I think that was, in retrospect, they were pretty good. They were pretty good. Yep.
Yeah, they're a very good team, very well constructed, very well coached, and all the pieces just fit together perfectly.
Yep. Hey, thanks for taking time, Chris. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem. Enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy your draft night and your time on Lake Minnetonka, and we'll do it again sometime.
Okay, take care, guys.
All right, Chris Finch, Minnesota Timberwolves head coach. All right, we'll say goodbye to Finchy here. Kyle, have any other blockbuster trades happened in the last 20 minutes since we've been talking to Finchy here? Or are we good?
Listen, I'm not going to lie
They
to
didn't
you.
trade Carl or anything during those 20
I
minutes.
went on a full do not disturb mode because I was like, that's about the time. Like, hey, you get to interview Chris Finch. That's about the time my mom's going to call.
The hot take police are circling outside my window
so I was like,
now.
no, Mom, I can't answer. I'm talking to Finchy. No, I don't think anything else. It's going to be not to get into the weeds. I kind of want to get your reactions to Finchy there too. But I think the CBA is, as many people have kind of understood now, even though these teams don't have the entire book on it yet, they're starting to figure out that there's going to be financial ramifications coming down the road. So you're starting to see some of these big trades, like even the Beal thing, more information came out and it's like they got all these pick swaps and second round picks. So I would imagine even if the Wolves aren't maybe the headliner later tonight on draft night, that they do some stuff, maybe get an extra second, maybe try to move into the late first. But you're just seeing a lot of teams start to do what I've been stressing about this last couple of weeks, is also reacting to their financial situations and having to, like, Golden State shed a lot of money by getting rid of Jordan Poole to get Chris Paul. It's a win now move, but there's gonna be some big ramifications of stuff that happens tonight. But what do you think about Finch?
Yeah, and we'll whatever happens tonight, we'll recap it. If it's a Wolves thing that rises, we'll emergency episode, whatever. But let's jump into our Chris Finch post game show here on Flagrant Howls. First of all, I love that I'm just trying to envision him with like some sunscreen on his nose on a pontoon, hopefully a Bennington pontoon from Power Lodge or Miller Marine.
Hey,
just on Lake Minnetonka, just chilling out, listening to some yacht rock or whatever he's doing.
I wanted to ask him what the boat's name was, but I didn't want to get a little too personal there, because you can start tracking it. So it's a good journalism in my mind. But I was like, I'd love to know, like, is it just the Finchy one, or like what is it?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out and put a
crack research team. put
a tracker on it. I'm a sucker for culture talk, like I said. Mm-hmm. So I love the way who said it. I was reading something the other day, and good teams are driven by coaches. Like when a coach leads a team, you can be a good team. But when players lead a team, when it's like a philosophy or a culture is instilled by coaches in front office, like to me, that's kind of what Heat culture is. It's like Pat Riley to Eric Spoelstra going back 20 years, and then the players take pride in it, right? Mm-hmm. Dwayne Wade and Udonis Haslem, now they're like obsessed with Heat culture. And to me, that's the next step for the Timberwolves. Whatever it is that Timberwolves culture is, and you can make all the jokes you want the last 20 years, because Timberwolves culture has been a lot of bad things over the years. But I love the way he talks about building that. And I even catch myself, I agree with what he said too. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't look to make changes if the right trades, even blockbuster trades, come across the table. Like they should consider making the team better and building around Anthony Edwards. But as you take a deep breath 2 months after the elimination from the playoffs, you do feel a little bit better with some separation. And it does feel like they're maybe building something here. And Anthony Edwards is a huge reason why. The fact that he's coachable, the fact that his teammates love him. So all of that culture stuff kind of put in a stew. I was just a sucker for that part of the interview.
And I was too. And again, we're going to be very pro Finch, right? Talking to him just a couple minutes earlier. But I came back to just thinking about how I'm friends with some people that cover the Nuggets, and like there were many years during this run where those fans wanted Mike Malone fired.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Golden State has had moments, even this year, I've seen, as you go Warriors Twitter, like where they wanted Steve Kerr fired. LeBron and Dwayne Wade, as rumored, wanted Spo fired back in the day. And those guys all kind of survived those storms. And that's how you get that consistency. That's how you kind of build that culture. Firing the coach is the easiest thing you can do in sports because it's the quickest, probably least financially obligated one.
Yeah.
But sticking it through and having that CEO, right, as Finch kind of described it. I also thought it was really cool when he said that the longer he's taken to kind of absorb what happened last season, the prouder he is, or the more at peace he is. Again, yes, no one is more aware than you and I of the 20, 30-year history of this franchise. But I do think it's actually kind of noteworthy that Finch has been here for, essentially since COVID for a handful of years, and he's already the second most winningest coach. Like, they have gone to the playoffs back-to-back years. They haven't done much in those playoffs, and that's, I think, the comment he made about still being hungry. But, I mean, when you look at it over the last 34 years, his track record kind of speaks for itself. So I'm excited to see that, he's got things he wants to work on, that he's excited to kind of get another shot with this core. And then just all the stuff he said about Ant and Jaden. I mean, he's been here pretty much since they were drafted.
Yeah.
So they're really, I mean, no offense to Ryan Saunders, but they're really the only coach, he's only the coach that they've known. So Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm excited. I'm glad that he was able to hop on the show. Well, I'm sure we'll have him back. Friend of the show now, but
yeah. Does a guy have to be? I think the rule for us is 2 times. Once you come out, like Kevin O'Connell made his second appearance last week on Purple Daily, friend of the show.
Okay, so, that's fair. We'll this next one we'll just live stream from the boat.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think you're onto something there. Couple koozies, couple Flagrant Howls koozies in hand.
I mean, my wife just left. I told her she had to leave so I could do this interview. I mean, I would probably rather have a beer with Chris Finch than get married. So, and I've already done that. So, we'll put that one out there for kind of the next white whale is, can we get a beer with Chris Finch? But yeah, good stuff. And again, he does show you, that in those comments about not having social media and stuff, like he is pretty, not protected. That's the wrong word, but he is pretty insulated to just not hearing what people like you and I have to say. And you also need that too. You got to have thick skin.
I was critical a couple times. I don't like to ever. I mean, it's happened before. You can probably find recordings of me calling for coaches' heads. Let's not lie. But like, you might call Karl Anthony Towns a clown about 6 times in the postgame show after they blew that 26-point lead to the Grizzlies. But I had questions, and I mean, the Timberwolves have a lot to prove here still.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But I've always wondered a little bit when they start to go off the rails, or they start to, you see the punch that we talked about with him. And I loved his answer to that too. And he's not afraid to answer questions about stuff, which
that was cool. Yeah.
But I've always wondered, he is a brilliant X's and O's offensive coordinator mind, but there's a whole nother level to being the culture setter and like to really push that thing over the top. But the way that he articulates his vision when it comes to organizational building and team building, I think if you're a fan and you hear what he just told us, I think you should feel more. I think you should come away more comfortable with Chris Finch if you were uncomfortable than maybe a half hour ago. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And again, his Wikipedia page and my comment about his coaching passport, like he's cut his teeth in some areas of the world that are difficult. And that's why, and people that listen to this show or listen to me on other stuff, like that's been my one thing that I go back to. It's like, I didn't love Finch doing that on a Tuesday night. I didn't love Finch running this rotation for a couple of weeks, but it always came back to in 2023, I think you got to manage the personalities as much, if not more, than you got to have the best ATOs and the best, defensive schemes. And anyone you talk to says that no matter what you think about this team, he's never like even remotely lost that locker room. And he has a firm control over that. There's some kind of cool video from a couple months ago where Ant was like wanted to say something at the end of a speech that Finch gave, but he like kind of asked him permission. It was a little thing into like that relationship. And I think that relationship is one of the most, if not maybe the most important thing the Wolves have going, is how Ant and Finch work together, because they're probably 2 of the biggest kind of pieces in this chessboard. So yeah, came away with that pretty impressed by Finch. He's not afraid to answer things, and also good that he like mixes in grass and fresh air, because I don't think Tom Thibodeau ever mixed in any of those things to his lifestyle diet.
He would mix in like a skyway walk to Murray's or something, or Manny's. Or maybe not. Maybe it was just he come back. It could have been delivery. I don't know for sure. Yeah, it sounds like he has a little bit more balance in his life. So, by the way, Mike Malone, 8th year as the Nuggets coach.
Okay.
And I think if you look at the arc of when coaches usually get fired, and they were winning enough in the regular season. It's funny that 17-18 wasn't the Nuggets. That's who the Wolves beat in the game 82, right?
Yep.
And the Nuggets were a 46-win non-playoff team that year. So that was now the 3rd year into Mike Malone's career. They went from 33-40 to 46, but no playoffs. And then the next few years, so they got to the playoffs 3 years. They went to the second round a couple times, Western Conference Finals I think that was the bubble year, right? They went to the Western Conference Finals. But so 7 years or 6 years of playoffs, and then back to the first round and done a year ago.
Yep.
And I feel like, and Connolly left. Right? Like that's usually where, okay, maybe the arc, maybe it peaked and now we're coming back down the hill, and organizations would look to make even major changes. They weren't looking to get rid of Connolly. He left for the Wolves because they doubled his paycheck, but they stuck with him. So I think there is a time and a place to make a change in sports. I also feel like largely in sports, fans and media and organizations are way too impatient and bloodthirsty, and it just puts you into a spin cycle as a team. So
And
another year of Finch is not the worst thing, Timberwolves fans.
And I get that. I'm part of that too, right? Like I'm already like refreshing my phone. Like, okay, what's the next trade? What's the next trade? It's like, dude, there's been a lot of activity today for you to digest.
Yeah, it just calm down. Yeah,
right. Just relax, guy. But I also think too, and I've thought about this because of when I looked this up the other day when Mayo Clinic Square was built and thinking about a new stadium down the road or whatever. But a handful of years ago, practice facilities weren't maybe as popular as they are now. Not a lot of teams had them. And that was like college sports too, right? Like that was one of the ways that you could differentiate yourself from other franchises was having a place for these young 18 to 32-year-olds just to kind of come in and hang out and be insulated and work on their game. And they had it prior to Finch being here. But now it's like the Wolves posted this week, everyone's there. Maybe at different times, but having all those guys there, that's important because as this team would go 20-62 every year, those guys, as soon as Game 82 was done, they were on planes to 15 different cities across the country. So good stuff. I'm glad we could have him on. We'll have him on again.
Yes, we do have time for Kyle's question of the week here. If you
3 weeks running,
if you want to. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask this when it was fresh on my mind, but it's still pretty good now. I just had a general question that opens up a bigger conversation for you. Do you travel a little bit? Do you have like a plain outfit? Like, do you have kind of like like stuff you maybe not specific one outfit, but like stuff you like to wear? Like, I got to make sure I wear that when I'm traveling and flying.
Yeah, it's a Batman costume, actually. So I don't speak. I just walk to my seat quietly, methodically. I do. Yeah, I actually wear pretty much the same thing on every single flight, unless it's a work trip or something. And it's like flying into a city and then there's like a meeting or something you have to be at. Then I'll maybe class it up a little bit. But do you want me to say like brands too? Like I can get really specific. I've got some
as specific as you want. I have a follow up, but you go. Take the rock.
Usually, black sweatpants or joggers of any kind. And then usually a pair of either Allbird or Nike, just athletic shoes that are comfortable to walk because you're going to walk like 5,000 steps in an airport. And then ordinarily I will go because sometimes you never know if it's going to be too cold or hot on a plane. If you're on the tarmac in Phoenix, for instance, like you might get a little sweaty if you're out there for 30 minutes. So I like to do a thin long sleeve shirt that I can wear on the plane or in the airport, and then I'll bring like a hooded sweatshirt or something and stuff it in my backpack. So
okay, so
and
I only
a hat
ask
because my bald head gets cold.
Right? Yeah, hats are. Look at me. I only ask because sometimes my wife is like, "Why are you wearing that again?" And I'm well aware that not everyone that's flying or everyone in this world is a sports fan, but I'm kind of like, if I became president, I would institute a rule where everyone has to wear like some sort of team gear. Because there's nothing better for me than like walking around an airport like across the country and like seeing someone in a Vikings hat or seeing someone.
Are you looking for conversation starters with people?
Yeah, and again,
I'm looking to avoid conversation on the airplane.
Okay, so there's a lot of introverts.
Headphones in, don't talk to me. Unless I have my headphones out, then maybe you're welcome to say something.
Yeah, I'm not like running up to them like I'm a government press official trying to get them to answer things, but it just also warms my heart. Like if I'm in the Atlanta airport and I see someone with a Purple Daily sweatshirt on or like a Vikings hat or God forbid a Timberwolves polo. So I try to wear like not again, as a fan of all Minnesota teams, I try to wear like team specific stuff. And my wife thinks I'm crazy. So I don't think you're wearing team specific stuff.
So you're just like wearing a Doug Minkiewicz Twins jersey through the airport. That's
it's like it's my Luke Ridnour jersey that I wear with a sweatshirt underneath so I can have layers.
No undershirt, just showing the guns with the Luke Ridnour. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So I had to ask you. I'll have a better question for next week, but I was going to ask Finch too if he had an outfit, but maybe next time.
Oh, we'll get him on one more time so he can be a friend of the show here and make it official. But all right, let's post this thing in case something crazy happens.
NBA draft. Let's get
it's NBA draft night. The Wolves may or may not do something crazy. By the time you listen to this, something crazy may or may not have happened. So we'll either do an emergency episode if something crazy happens, or we'll see you guys probably early to mid next week here on Flagrant Howls. Please click subscribe and the like button on the SKOR North YouTube channel so we can grow the brand, #brand. And if you could give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts, it also helps spread the word. You even bring logoed pint glasses with you wherever you go. Anything to start a conversation. All right, he's Kyle. I'm Phil. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Flagrant Howls.